We got the audio coming in. Yep. Looks like the mic is hot. We got the audio coming in. Yep. Looks like the mic.
We'll get him as he comes.
All right. So.
Oh, and Father Damien has the link.
All right. So.
He's gonna sort himself out. He's got to finish up something real quick, and then he'll be on.
Okay. That's good to hear. Okay. So, thank you for joining. It is July 2021. We're making it through the lockdown. Great stuff.
Isn't it June?
Vaccinations.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a month ahead. Apparently, I'm getting urgent for next month's talk, which is going to be fun. But yes, let's stay with present day. So thanks, Mara. June 2021. And yeah, we're here today to talk about gratitude and gratitude with how we treat others and ourselves. Because I think when we often start talking about gratitude, we go in the thought of like, okay, it's for someone else, and then we kind of leave ourselves behind. Um, and especially going through the pandemic, 2021 is still a very turbulent year for many of us. That the concept of self-care and need for these sorts of things is just as relevant. Quote I found for today that I felt sat well with this talk is from Cicero, and it's gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, but the parent of all others. And the historical sense of virtues were pretty much what people thought you needed to be proper human, and like to balance these things. And when you're in alignment with virtues, you're like a paragon of humanity. And for them to phrase it in this way, that you can't really have the others if you don't start with gratitude, I thought was just very, very powerful for the talk going on. The three talking points we'll go over is: how does gratitude show up in your life? Do you treat yourself as well as you do others? And are you holding back or embracing this, right? Um, and the kind of set the context a bit, the idea of gratitude, that we're giving thanks, that we're grateful, right? That we are able to appreciate. It takes a certain amount of intelligence, emotional intelligence, for you to be able to be present and be able to reflect, right? And when it's with others, that's you stopping, having a moment of clarity and thinking, oh, I should tell them something. I should thank them for this. I should remind them why I care about them, why they're important to me. And that's an act of giving. And, they receive, and uh, more often than not, with gratitude, it's probably going to receive well, and that they will feel better. You feel better having given that to them. It's reciprocal, right? But then when it comes to ourselves, we don't often do that same interaction and treat ourselves like someone else briefly to say, you know what, I just did a great workout. Thank you. Because the future self is going to appreciate that, right? Or I had a really hard day. I came home and I didn't take it out on my family because, you know, I left it at work, and knowing that when I get home, I have a family that cares for me and I care for them. So I'm grateful to have that and not have to come home to a situation that I might not like, right? So there's a lot of mixed things in how we look at gratitude and how it is external, internal, and all that. So I'm hoping that we can dig into that and kind of explore that here. So the first question, and I would like to throw it over to Rara, as she's got some special attachment to this talk. The first question I have for you, Rara, is, how does gratitude show up in your life right now?
Thank you. I'm staring at an award at this moment because it's right in my eyesight. It's a reminder of one day I decided to do something to honor my parents and take an action. And somehow I was rewarded for that and ended up with a gratitude award. So it shows up in my life because I'm reminding myself every day by taking a particular action to honor their wedding. So I found a way to keep a positive spin on people that are no longer with me instead of thinking about how I miss them or what if I only did, and if all the things sometimes you think about. It shows up in my life because I am taking an action to bring people that I love into what I do. And I'm doing that without looking for anything. But I happen to get this amazing recognition for it. So I think it shows up from my heart without looking for anything. But I'm so excited that I have been recognized for this and branded that opportunity, which was just totally unforeseen. It just sort of smacked me in the face. And being the strong Sicilian I am, I just shook it off and looked at it and said, what can I do with this?
Right. Thank you. And just because you have a talk that's specifically around this, concept, right? Uh, if you don't mind digging into a bit and just like, where did that inspiration come from, and like that you're pushing that narrative and making that a point because it matters so much.
Right. Well, I won an award, and so did my partner, Lori. So we met on stage because we both did something in our lives that got recognition. And when we met on stage, we decided that we would create something from this recognition and this place of being for us. So we started our show 8 years ago. So we've been running a Gratitude Girls podcast live, show. It wasn't called a podcast, Sean, when we started it, it was called a Hangout. Like, do you remember Google Hangouts? So we started on Google Hangouts. So we called it, Hangout with the Gratitude Girls. And then Google Hangouts went away, and so now we do Zoom, YouTube, all that stuff. So we decided to give that platform to anyone who wanted to share a gratitude story. And I say like anyone, we interviewed people who wanted to share a gratitude story. So once a month for 8 years, no matter what day of the week, the fourth Tuesday of every month fell on. Christmas, Christmas Eve, getting on a plane. It's always the same time. We interview, talk to people, much like you're doing now, with different people, and they share what is going on in their life, what they're grateful for. And this has been a reminder because we sort of live, you probably do that here too, right? Like we live for the day that we're going to have the show and our guest and what our guest is going to say. And we dive into what is going on in our guest's life. And we've interviewed people that have died 10 times and come back. Like, I can't even tell you the stories, 8 years of the people that have reached out to us with their stories and said, can you put me on your show? And I want to tell the story about how I have a bionic heart, or I want to tell the story of how. So we spend most of our time talking to people who want to share a story, and we put them in front of our camera. And for an hour, we ask them to share what's going on.
Thank you. Yeah, I can imagine in the 8 years the amount of stories, and as you put it, people have lived and died, and I think that's an interesting thing to consider around this, and where we can get into in the later points about you know people not giving that gratitude themselves. Is like we we live and are able to live past things that normally would have taken us out, very early in life in many cases, and sometimes we stop being grateful for that and the opportunity that you're still breathing, even though you had some bad ear infection as a kid, or you had tonsillitis. These things that just compound over time that I think we just end up losing track of. So
And I'll just add one thing. When I met my partner, she lives in Columbia, Tennessee, and I am from New York, but I lived in Canada. About 4 months prior to that, and this is part of our narrative, Lori lost her husband in a car accident and left her with 4 children. And he was a police officer, and he was off duty. And when I met her, she was in the midst of dealing with this in her life. And I met her there on the stage, and she met me, and we made this electric physical connection. We sort of touched on the stage, held hands getting down the stage, and within a minute, we birthed Gratitude Girls.
that's incredible.
Mm.
Yeah. Again, in the later points, we might touch on more in the ideas of trauma, and how that's able to affect us when, like you said, in remembrance of your parents, right? How that's keeping them alive. So you're choosing not to focus on the fact that they're missing because
Right,
they're not. Right. So
right, yes,
it's a very, very powerful thing. A very, again, some of the aspects is, you know, um, just to take the side for the moment is, we can talk about too what it takes to be grateful, right? You know, that not everyone can be, and at certain times in your life you haven't been, right? Everyone is going to be at a point in their life where they're not grateful, they're not willing to ask for stuff, and you know, to to give back to others. So yeah, that's definitely a lot to unpack here. So thank you, Rara.
you're
Appreciate
welcome.
starting things off. Um, so over to Mr. Bergantz. If you can help us learn about how gratitude is showing up in your life right now, especially with the big changes on the horizon for you. So.
Yeah, thank you. I'll step back and I can tell you that gratitude. I'm looking back. First time the term of gratitude came to me when I was boy, like probably first year university. One of my friends took me on this yoga session, and after yoga it was meditation. And I remember this gentleman, elder gentleman, who was leading this meditation. He said, "Now we're going to do gratitude meditation." And I remember at that time I already had lots of anxieties and doing like trying. I was first year university running my business and hiring people like my dad's age and and at school and all the complexities of I guess you know those ages like when we're just going through lots of changes and I was really anxious and I remember closing eyes and just leading and being led by this teacher and listening gratitude and just really was so simple be grateful you can walk, grateful you can talk, grateful imagine that you have all your limbs like just you can you have hands, you have your legs. It was so simple but it was so incredible. I remember as I was going through like 5 minutes in this meditation I felt so good and relaxed, and I left that place and I was thinking to myself, God, how simple it is. I can just really literally look at the simple things every day and be grateful. And that's going to create less anxieties. And because most of the anxieties, especially to today world, shifting to your question, how it's showing up today, I think many years after, like looking today where we have more anxieties because we have all this notifications and Instagrams and TikToks and all the different kind of things, which is driving younger generation right now, and even like elder generations right now, just to kind of influence how the life should be, right? So maybe just putting the pressure. We had one of the talks where we were talking about social media, right? Like where I think lots of fakeness and people just get certain expectation how life should be, relationship, how success should be, right? So you should be driving this expensive car, should have this big home or whatever, and it creates anxieties. And I find in today, well, my life is every morning for the past, I'd say for the past 10 years, I start my day with glass of water. I sit down, I pray, and that's different, probably type of meditation and also gratitude. And I go through the list. I just go specifically like through 3 to maybe 6 things I'm grateful for this morning. And I set up my day. Like I remember before I had before I started doing this, it was I started the day already anxious and feeling angry. You kind of go until and I never drank coffee, but like I felt like those people who didn't have a coffee in the morning, right? So I was like, like I need my coffee to feel good about this day, right? So I felt like I need some kind of like boost in the morning to be good and happy, right? So while again sun is shining, nature is beautiful, birds are singing, I can walk, I can talk, I'm healthy, and I'm miserable, right? So and today I'm just keep reminding myself the simple exercise where I can just simply sit down and I don't need to go through the crazy list. I can just, as I said, name 3, 4, or maybe even 2 things what I'm grateful for. And sometimes in the morning, if I'm tired, it's early morning, as it's been this week, like, and the schedule is really tight and I have to push the boundary, still wake up earlier. I'm just to close my eyes and say, I'm grateful I have, simple things. I'm like, I can see. I'm grateful I have all the resources I have, and I'm grateful I still have my parents, and I can enjoy time with them. And I'm grateful for all the people God puts in my life. And those little things, I think that's what today presently help me to push through and just be in the right context instead of just waking up and just go down spiral like with like bad negative thoughts.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, that's just how I would describe presence of this currently in my life.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, the way you framed it, I think, goes well along this quote and kind of like how deep that is, right? Because if you start your day and say, well, I'm grateful, I'm able, I have vision, I have hearing, the most basic of things that you're able to say, I already have this, so everything else is actually easier, right? Everything
Yeah.
else I can approach, everything else I can start to deal with is how starting with the gratitude is is what trickles to everything else. So I think it marries well to the quote.
Yeah, I think it's just, as Buddha was saying, like suffering comes from good and bad, right? So just like different extremes. I think if you can stay this balanced and remind simple things, like you have already a bunch of things. You don't need more things to be happy. Um, or, you can be okay with who you are, right? So you don't need to be a different human being for feeling grateful and happy.
Yeah. And many people who end up getting what they seek without planning ahead or recognizing what that is, the good, achievements can still feel bad, right? So there's definitely an interesting
So big
correlation
time.
with that stuff. So,
Yeah,
okay,
I agree.
thank you, man. All right, Cornell, over to you, man. Mr. Casey, how is gratitude showing up in your life? And you're definitely dealing with a lot of craziness being on the front lines in this pandemic, so right? So,
Yeah. Well, because you are on the front line and kind of everybody is at home, they don't really know what you're up to. But it's kind of funny that in the other side of my world, the DJ world or whatever, I show up on Twitch into other people's shows and stuff, and they're like saying how much they appreciate me. Like DJs, they had no idea what it was that I did in my professional life, or in my career, and they were like, "Really, you do that? Wow!" And it's kind of appreciate you. So yeah, I guess I've been in the spotlight a couple of times when I show up, and you guys know me well enough to know that I don't do well in the spotlight. And thankfully nobody can see me at that moment because you're only in a chat. But still, people are talking about you and saying that they appreciate you and they didn't know and all these kind of things. And yeah, it's a little different to hear people say that they appreciate the things that I do, because in the role that I'm in, it's not the role of appreciation, or people are not necessarily grateful unless something bad happens to them and I have to come to the rescue. Aside from that, it's why do you do what you do, and why do you have to be that way, and so forth, until the moment that they actually need the services that I do, that they demonstrate immense amounts of gratitude. Um, I also see kind of the negative side of things, the opposite of the gratitude, all the time in my role. And I think I saw a great line on LinkedIn a few years ago that's they were great for quotes, and they said unsuccessful people have a sense of entitlement, and successful people have a sense of gratitude. I love that line, and I wrote it down on my board. In my office I have positive quotes for, like, when people are sitting in the office and they have to be interviewed or they have to be whatever. I don't want to be surrounded by negative things. I want to be surrounded by positive things, because generally I'm doing investigations and so forth to, I guess, because something bad has happened. So, you know, practice like you've never won, uh, perform like you always win, and stuff like that. Always be the hardest worker in the room, and that's a quote from The Rock. It's be humble, be hungry, and always be the hardest worker in the room, and stuff like that is what I try to project to people who are sitting in the office. So that's that's how I try to encourage others to feel a sense of gratitude for where they are in life and how they've managed to survive. I have meetings with a lot of young folks, and I when I speak to them, I try to demonstrate to them how important they are to um, the business and how important they are to Canada as a result of what it is that we do, and um, especially during the lockdown, they have all seen people struggle, and I have to ask them, "Are you struggling?" And they realize when you put things into context that they're grateful for their position. So, ironically, um, I have difficulty saying thank you to people. I seem to forget, not because I'm rude, but because generally speaking, through my teenage years and early 20s, I pretty much did everything all on my own. And it was kind of, I don't need your help. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I realized that I actually need people's help. So I have to think twice in my interactions to remind myself to tell people thank you for the things that they've done that has enriched my life in any way, shape, or form. I have to double check myself because I guess after 30, I went through like a little bit of a growth spurt, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, whatever. And I started to realize that I can't do things on my own. And, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together, kind of thing. So, all those quotes have all shaped my 30s and helped me to recognize when I need to express my gratitude for what it is that people do. Because if they don't get it, they stop, right? They feel unvalued, unloved, unrewarded in any way, shape, or form. And that's not what I mean to do or say. So it's a matter of catching it um, and recognizing it. Um, and I know I'm not alone because I've seen other people stop and come back to my office to say, "Oh, by the way, thank you for what you did." So I know I'm not alone, but what's this thing called? We're called Evergrowth. Yeah, I'm still growing. And I'm gonna leave it there.
Yeah,
It is in
yeah,
my head.
yeah. Definitely, there's a negative side. Entitlement, I think, is the most accurate thing, right? And in the pandemic, we've seen a lot of people, kind of go the other way, unfortunately. And it's just interesting how people like, you know, whether they recognize it and sometimes they think they're appreciating or being grateful and then actually not. And it's like a hidden form of entitlement. It's very, very puzzling the way people, humans function. And so, thank you, Casey.
We
Where
seem to
this,
have difficulty walking a mile in another person's shoes. That's what our
yeah.
problem.
Well, yeah. So kind of like where it comes to is around like emotional intelligence and like a lack of empathy, really, because
Yep.
the stuff that's gone on the past couple of weeks with the residential schools, the the London incident of the Muslim family being attacked. It's like,
Oh my gosh.
how is this Canada, right? But we have to recognize, that it's a problem. It's not something you sweep under the rug and like go on as everything's normal, right? And
Mm.
for people to get that far down that path and think that horribly of an innocent family walking down the street, like where is the empathy? Where is the you know? I just can't understand, man. It's beyond me. Uh, the the fact that the social media, Brigance is talking about that, we get in this pattern of being uh, looking up to certain things or certain ideals or kind of not thinking for ourselves. So where gratitude is showing up for me right now is that you know I've been a fortunate person with stability of a job through this pandemic, and at times the things and depths that Bergance talked about being grateful for you know, um, we have clean drinking water. Do you know how special that is, right? Like, do you stop and realize, hey, I can just turn on the faucet, and even if it's unfiltered, I know I'm not going to die from this water. That's something that, I try and be a little more worldly in appreciating what we have here in this country. That, you know, I definitely struggle with being Canadian because of the things like we do to the Indigenous people, uh, other backgrounds, the way the system works. But I have to recognize that, yeah, I'm in a home. I'm not in an apartment during this pandemic. That is by choice and a risk that we took, some years ago. And I'm grateful we took that risk because, we would have still been in an apartment, likely, or maybe a condo instead of a house. But, you know, the the things of, dealing with the tough job, and, as most, here, I end up working a lot of overtime, and it can be very destructive. And that's, I'd say, where I get to points where I stop being grateful for myself and things I have. But it's a necessity, so it's a sacrifice. And you know, I don't think uh, I'm always great at recognizing that a sacrifice today gives me the opportunities, for tomorrow. I kind of, you know, still struggle a bit in kind of processing it when it gets heavy and it gets too many. And infinitely better than I was. The things I take on and the amount of responsibility I have and manage is 10 times, tenfold what it was 10 years ago, right? Where I was in my career and life. But, it's something that I recognize I'm not the best at, and it's something that I have to keep working on. Evergrowth, as you said, Casey. It's the importance I'm trying to gravitate to is that it's a part of a routine that I need to practice. And, maybe I don't do it every day, or, I don't, reach out to the people as soon as I need to, but as long as I recognize and can still make an effort, you know, then there's still that connection, that relationship building, and more importantly, that people know that they're still valued and appreciated. So yeah, I for all my years and all my learning, and definitely have a stronger emotional intelligence than I did. Um, I'm still a work in progress around gratitude. So um, and leading into the second point is definitely part of the reason why I struggle with that, I think. And you know um, just like the the entitlement aspect of, like, if you're entitled you can't really be grateful, and it's not something you can balance. When people stop being grateful to themselves, potentially, i I don't know if that's entitlement or just you know not recognizing the importance of being grateful to yourself. And I think there's something lacking when we can only be grateful to others and we can't appreciate things about ourselves, thank ourselves, right? So I'll throw it back to you, Raw Raw, to cover this point. And do you treat yourself differently than others around gratitude, or are you able to really look at it the same lens, or kind of treat it the same way?
Thank you. I work at it. I make it a point to think about. I've been accused of doing things like, why are you so patient with people? And why do you do that? And I remember when I first moved here, one of my business partners said, well, how do you do that? You have so much patience with people. Why don't you just like get to the point with it? And I thought, I remember there were times when I really needed hand holding and just didn't get it. Someone wasn't there. DJ Casey, how you talked about, when you were, yeah, I sort of felt like that a lot in my life too. And I think about how others may not know how to reach out. And if I happen to cross their path, I'm probably there for, a really good reason. So I do treat myself as I treat others. And I think about that I actually schedule it. I put me time. I am grateful for myself. I wouldn't push somebody. So I try not to push myself, but I'm a real competitive person. So I like challenges. I like dates and if you put a prize up somewhere, you put I don't know, it doesn't have to be a prize, it could be a star. Like I'm gonna go for it. Like nothing else exists. I'm gonna go for it. And that probably comes from early years of wanting some validation, like really needing to be recognized. So I believed if I were the hardest worker in the room, if I were the person that came in the earliest and left the latest, if I were the person to do the most deals, if I were the person to, you know, be the most mindful, that I would be able to be an important integral part of something. So coming from that, I believe that if I treat myself the way I treat others, believing that we all are vulnerable, we all have vulnerabilities, is what I should say. Then I look at my own vulnerabilities and say, what do I need to do to get in touch with that, to be transparent to myself and to others, and to heal when I may not even realize that I need healing, because sometimes we can mask what's really going on. We can, if we're good at it, we're really good at it. If we can just appear to be as if we don't need help with anything. So I do treat myself as well as I do others with a reminder. It is more of a habit now. I have a husband who reminds me all the time to treat myself. He reminds me all the time to treat us as a couple. And I remind myself when I'm alone in my room, in my office, I call it my bridge room. When I'm alone with myself, I remind myself to feel what I'm feeling, to listen as if I'm listening to me, if I were speaking and listening, and to do in the state of gratitude. And there are some moments where you just don't know where you're going to find the strength to treat yourself as you do others, because it's easy to overlook ourselves. It's easy to camouflage pain with doing for others. It's
Yeah.
easy to be there for someone else and sort of fake it. Anyone who's gone through any pain can, I don't want to bring you to that point, but you can remember that. And now I believe that with my constant reminders, with my habit, with writing gratitude, I actually became more, I don't want to say exposed, but more visible with that. Last night, as a matter of fact, I started writing and using social media as a way to post 5 things that I'm grateful for on a gratitude list. And that is treating myself, because it's treating myself to 5 or 10 minutes of looking at something and continuing to make myself vulnerable. And I think that's a key point in being human.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. As the way you're approaching that, I thought back to the golden rule about treat others as you treat yourself, but truly to think about how many of us treat others better than we'd ever treat ourselves, and just how we get to that point. It's like, but I think the angle you're on is like it has to be constant. It has to be a habit. You have to have reminders. You have to keep working at it, because it's not going to do it for itself. You're not going to take care of yourself and give yourself that allowance and recognize it. And the validation point too, and something around worthiness, I think, as a being, we kind of struggle with that a lot. I've seen, and it's, yeah, just very interesting the way, we get to this point being an adult, and no matter the age, we've gone through things that have soured our worldview, and you know had struggles, and it means a lot when you can keep pushing on and persevering, and at least being able to way to come back and you know to have the chance for that habit because yeah, it's very impactful. Thank you, Laura. All right, we have Father Damien in the house. Pleasure to have you here, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we came in at a good point. So we're talking about gratitude here, about ourselves and others, and I'd love to have your perception, on this and with what you do, and you your support for so many people. So when it comes to gratitude, what does that look like for you in terms of others, and then more importantly for yourself as well?
Um, I think like in the world that we live in, I think even for ourselves, we have a certain sense of gratitude we can have on a natural level. Like when your parents do something for you, you're thankful for it. But I think gratitude comes with a lot of reflection. So in order for you to be grateful for something, you have to know that it was given to you and it wasn't yours. I think oftentimes when I was in the seminary, so I was the assistant vocation director of the Archdiocese of Toronto, and also I was the dean of students at the seminary. And what I found was a lot of the younger seminarians, as they're growing up, because they didn't have hardships, a lot of stuff like that, they came in with a lot of a sense of entitlement that things were owed to them. And when they didn't see where it was coming from, who sacrificed what, and even like for myself, the meals that I get, it's from the hard labor of all the parishioners that give donations, and they work hard for their money, and it's not like they're not working hard. And when you're able to reflect on that and see, then you're able to have a greater sense of gratitude, and thankfulness. Like gratitude and thankfulness go hand in hand. The fact that you know that where it came from. When I was growing up, I didn't care. I assumed my parents would give me everything that I wanted. I assumed all that stuff, but I didn't know, like I didn't realize how hard it was for them to leave Guyana. So they were working, they had place, they had homes, they had money, and then they couldn't leave with anything. And they literally came to Canada with just luggage of clothes, and that's it. No money. And what they sacrificed, I couldn't, growing up I didn't know. It's only on reflecting back and understanding a little bit more about what they had to go through that I have a greater sense of gratitude. But I think we can come to know it once we take time to stop and reflect. And I think oftentimes, though, we live such busy lives that we don't make time for that, and that's usually what falls by the wayside. But the moment we are able to actually have the time to reflect, it'll be amazing at how much gratitude you have for many things that you would never have thought of. And I think as human beings, we kind of we kind of have that, or else, like for example, why would we have Thanksgiving on in October, and all around the world people are thankful for things. It's just natural for us to be thankful, but we need to stop and think about it. um, so my sense of gratitude is basically comes with reflection. We don't get gratitude right away, and then the more we're able to habituate or train ourselves to reflect daily, it's the greater chances we have of being thankful the moment something happens. We're able to make those connections quicker.
Yeah, thank you. And the the key point you hit on here is about taking the time to reflect. And with such busy lives, even during a pandemic, somehow not everyone is willing to do that, and that's what I find is such a disservice to themselves and others, right?
Yeah.
Um, so you know, because you lead sermons and you have basically a flock that you take care of. Do you find there's a balance of how much you are giving to your parishioners versus taking that time for yourself, or is it only because you take the time for yourself that you're enabled to actually be there for them.
Yeah, I find that yeah, there is a balance to it, and I have to take that time because if I don't, pretty soon I lose that gratitude for the parishioners and for what they do and they sacrifice, and then I can have a tendency not to help them as much. But the more I have gratitude for them, the more I'm able to do for them. So they kind of work off of one another. So but I do take time naturally on my spiritual life to reflect on my daily and everything that happens to me daily. So that's just one of the practices. But I mean, it took me 7 years of seminary formation to kind of learn that, right? I don't know why we're not taught that in elementary school or high school when we're growing up to think about those things. But it took me like a long time to kind of reformat, if you will, or re-image my hard drive to kind of train myself at the beginning of the day and the end of the day to reflect. So it just means I have to wake up a little earlier or go to bed a little later, but it does help in the way I serve others. I see them going hand in hand.
Yeah. Don't get me started on the school system, but it almost feels like, you know, if we had like curriculums about how to be a good human and forget all the other nasty stuff beyond reading and writing, you know, like we don't develop humans, right? We push them through these systems, and that's, I think, where we lose some of the gratefulness and get this entitlement because they think I did well in school, I deserve a good job, or the younger seminarians that or you're encountering, it's like, wait a minute, why? You got here because, yeah, you studied in that, but that doesn't mean you just automatically get, or have
That's
a
right.
position of power.
And then when they don't get it, you should see the hissy fit that actually happens because they don't have a sense of humility to say, okay, you know what, I'll try again, or I'll do this. They just think they deserve. So when a student gets straight A's and doesn't get accepted into a university, their world is actually shattered. It's almost like
Yeah,
if they knew, well, there's a lot of people, so be grateful for what you have. You have an education, you got straight A's, you can always reapply again next year. Um, you know, but when you think it's owed to you, yeah, it doesn't train for good human beings. Smart ones, but not good ones.
yeah. The core of that, and where the loss of gratefulness might start, is humans are myopic. We have this immediate kind of short-term vision of all things instead of being able to say, okay, I didn't get that today, but that's not going to stop me. It's just a bump on the road. So I find that's another part of the kind of equation why, and you said you have trained for this consistently for 7 years to get to this level that you're at now. And if you didn't do that, you know, would you be, the person revered that Casey never stops talking about, and everyone loves calling out to Father D on the chat, and I and the having met you, and again being an atheist, like I feel connected to you, right? So I'm grateful for having met you and being a part of your circle in some sense. And
Thank you, man.
so if you
Here is a gratitude for you. There we go.
and this is the compounding thing that I guess as a broader society we struggle with, is like, because you spent time on yourself and because I've spent time on myself, that we can be here now and we can have a talk like this. Whereas if neither of us did, who knows who you'd be, who knows who I'd be, and our probably lives wouldn't be as grand as they are. So it's just a very interesting thing why people don't gravitate to this more, that
Well, it is
it
funny
helps
because
everyone.
in seminary formation for the priesthood, it's not just people think it's academic and spiritual, right? But there's four pillars of seminary formation. There's the academics, because we end up getting a master's of divinity. There's the spiritual, where you have to learn how to pray and learn how to devote your time to God and all that stuff. there's also the pastoral, like how to apply both your theology and your prayer life to others and to the real world. But the last one, which a lot of people forget, is the human formation. And you know, Cicero has it right there, but we take a look at like Aristotle, Nicomachean Ethics, we take a look at Thomas Aquinas, you know, we take a look at a lot of things that it really begins with our natural ability to become better virtuous people first. And that human formation is one of the stronger pillars. And if you think of those four pillars as like four legs on a chair, you knock any one of them off or one of them short, it's going to be crooked. They all have to be equally formed. And I don't think we do a good job of that. And not to get you into the education system, because I know, yeah, but we don't do a good job of that. But that's where I think, as when you have parents, the primary role of educators is there, and even the government can't remove that. And I think they have a great deal to actually form them on the human formation part. They can, even if our school lacks in many things, our homes should be is the very first primary school of education. Like, as
Yeah.
parents, you tell your kids what to do, what's right, what's wrong, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. And, the gratefulness when we talk about kids, right? Being able to encourage that in them at a young age changes the way they grow, right?
I
If
remember.
you, as a kid, I remember the odd school trip where we'd be in nature and we'd have those, guides and that, and some kids would just be goofing off and stuff like that. But I really took that in because I really thought it was very interesting to learn about nature and insects and birds and the way trees grew and things
Mhm.
like that. And I was just drawn to it in a way that some kids were just couldn't be bothered. So to be in that position as a kid, interested in things like that, uh, you know, there's something I
Yeah,
was taught or picked up before then to be able to be capable of it.
and I know we learned it, like my sisters and I learned it very young age. Like, I would look at my sisters, they would have more chicken or more meat in their curry than I do, or when they have the pepper pot or whatever, why do they have the pigtail and I have nothing? And I'd always turn to my dad, and my dad and mom would always say, be grateful for what you have, because there's others in the world. We come from a third world country where they're starving, right? And we were that was ingrained in our head to be grateful for what we have, even as little as it might be. At least it's more than what someone else has, and we should be happy for that. And I think that's where I got part of it from too, right? Not just seminary formation helped me to reflect, but I think, to your point, like, parents can ingrain this when we're young, and we can learn it as we grow older.
Yes, thank you. All right, move over to KC on this. You know, how are you doing with gratefulness for yourself versus others?
Well, first I want to get back to one thing that Father Damien said, because Father Damien said that he mentioned a part there where sometimes it takes time for you to realize that you're grateful for something that happened. And that's the thing that's the trap that I seem to fall into a lot. I'm trying to capture it in the moment rather than, you know, an interaction happens, somebody does something for me. I don't recognize how powerful it is until I get home. And then I realize, oh man, look what I just got, or look what just happened, or whatever. And in that moment, that's when I feel grateful. But I'm like a day late and a dollar short kind of deal. Like it's. I wish I recognized it then, so that I can honor the person then, instead of, oh, okay, well, I'll do it next time I see them, and then next time I see them, I don't do it again because at this point in time I've forgotten or something or other. You know what I mean? And that moment has passed, that opportunity has passed. And you know, when Father Damien brought up the fact that, yeah, sometimes you recognize it later on after the fact and something or other, I want to get to the point where I'm able to recognize it, see it, identify it, and respond to it in that moment rather than, you know, days later or, could even be longer. Uh, Not even hours or minutes. It could be a year later. Oh, I have this here, and that's because somebody did something for me. And how do you give them thanks or whatever? So that's one thing that I've just drawn from Father Damien's statement. Now, do I treat myself? Um, I'm trying to now. I never did in my early years, in all my early years up to 30 and I guess a little bit beyond. It was always giving. It was always doing for others. It was always, you know, you need a hand with this, I'm there. You need to move, I'll help you. I just met a person yesterday. Yeah, sure, I'll go and I'll help you. I'll be the guy. I'll be the sacrificial lamb for, whatever the situation was. So I always, uh, when I was younger, I always put other people ahead of myself, to the point of not even taking care of myself. And it wasn't until I'm in my 30s that I realized that you have to take care of yourself first, or else you're not going to be able to take care of anybody. Um, you learn that in my career in emergency scene management and so forth. You get to the scene of something, you don't just dive in there and help the person who's dying. You have to check and make sure you will be safe to get in there and deal with that person, because if not, you're going to have two dead people in there. So it was a hard lesson in my 30s to recognize that I am allowed to take care of myself first. I am allowed to celebrate a victory that I've had by indulging in that moment, not overdoing it, but you know what I mean. In that moment, you celebrate a victory, you celebrate success, you celebrate something wonderful that has happened in your life. And yeah, I was not any good at that, and quite frankly, I'm still working on it now to these days. The goal is to not go overboard where you're more important than everybody else no matter what. So it's a matter of making sure that you don't go overboard. But I got fellas like you guys around that keep me grounded, so my head's not up in the clouds. um, so I guess that's that. Yeah. Do I treat myself as well as I do others? I didn't, but I'm a work in progress, and I think I'm getting there now.
Yeah, and on the point you brought up about you recognize it late, and then you think about telling them next time that you forget. So I have a story from Mr. Rogers around that, and maybe it'll give you some perspective and way to look at it differently. So Mr. Rogers is in the later part of his life is a paragon of like humanity, being able to teach children how to deal with feelings and stuff like this, like gratitude, giving gratitude. But he was talking in an interview about like, does he ever get mad? It's like, of course, I'm human, right? He talks about having to deal with feelings, not that you don't get feelings. And he talked about an instance where he was had a tough day at work and drove to see his grandchildren, and he was still, pent up from the day. And his grandchildren were playing with sprinklers and getting each other wet. And he told the one grandson, "You're not going to spray me," you know. And then the grandson was testing the limits and getting the hose closer and closer. And he finally snapped and basically said, "Turn off the water. You're done now." And then he got home later that night and recognized through reflection, and again, just because of the lessons and the virtues that he tried to teach continually, was able to recognize and say, I was, I was mean. I shouldn't have done that. And instead of waiting or finding a good time to kind of resolve it, he called his grandson right away. And he told him, I recognized that I was mean and it wasn't about you, and I'm sorry. And his grandson immediately forgave him and he said, "It's okay. You know, good people do things sometimes that they can't help." and I'm not mad at him. And he was, so relieved in that forgiveness that had he not made the call or not remembered to do it, he missed that opportunity for both of them to connect and share that moment of gratitude and forgiveness. And forgiveness is something we haven't touched on, but I would say that ties into some of these feelings or reasons why we do these things. That it's reciprocal, right? It's this, I'm grateful, thank you, I appreciate you, and I'm sorry, and forgiving that person and being open to forgiving, right?
I
There's
guess
something special there. So
I guess that's why you have that line by Cicero there.
yeah, so this the challenge as we keep growing, man, is like, don't wait. Even if it's just a text, if you can't call, like, or write it down so that you'll know next time. But I think you have a lot of opportunities that to share that gratitude and again get back for you, because this is where you say you have trouble, kind of focus on yourself, and that act of doing it is what helps fill the well and kind of gives it back to you. Father D, you can jump in there for a second.
Oh no, I was gonna say that's what my homily basically is this evening, this weekend. So, but
Oh, look at
yeah,
that, how
well,
fortuitous.
that's a big part for Christianity, right? Is forgiveness and gratitude for that forgiveness for God who dies. That's John 3:16. God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, not to condemn the world, but to save the world. And from that, we get this gratitude of, oh, God is good. But yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to say that as you were talking, Homer, that's what was going to go in my homily before you started talking. I already have my homily done, right? So I was like, wow, it's good.
Yeah, very fortuitous, and it's interesting, how these things connect. So, Mr. Bragantz, I'll throw it back to you now, sir. And how are you with gratitude, specifically around others and just yourself?
No, I was listening. So many amazing points. I think everybody raised up. I'll start with following. I think what Casey mentioned, it was just so similar to me. I think many years of my life, I was completely ignorant, and gratitude for myself was really bad, right? So I would just go and do lots of things for others first, and then I would say, oh, when the time is left, I'll do for myself, right? And most of the time is never left, right? And then I just would kind of just go and say, okay, maybe this is not important, which creates like different issues, right? And then one day, I remember years later, I heard the quote that says, you truly cannot love other people until you fully love yourself. And I remember I was listening to this and I was like, just like, this is one of those things which back in time would make me vomit and say, oh, this makes no sense. Like, seriously. And then like later I understood it. It's so true. Until you, like as Casey said, like put your mask first to save the other person and make sure both of you safe. You cannot do this, right? So gratitude today for myself is way better. And Father Damien brought lots of amazing points. I think it's just like it's mentioned in God teachings and scriptures where obviously do to others what you would do to yourself. And I think I'm also looking at the gratitude. This is what it is, right? So like you could be grateful for yourself first and all other things, which gonna make you more conscious of being grateful for the other things around you, right? So other people. Like as recent as yesterday, we were just I had a chance to meet one of my great clients, which became my mentor, and just really great, amazing human being. I'm quite grateful that I came across his path and I spent the time with him. And I was talking, like I spent some time with him, and then I'm sitting with my fiance and talking, and we were just and I'm sharing and I'm saying, listen, I'm so grateful I get a chance to spend time with him. And she said, did you say that to him? And I was like, you know, and even to the day, I think I'm still working on it. And what's the lesson here? I think if you're present and you're really in the moment, it allows you to be grateful not just for yourself but for others. And that just might be similar to what Father Damien said. It just hand in hand is like it's almost like three legs, not three legs, four legs into the chair. It just all comes together: love, gratitude, um, and a couple other important things. But I think you definitely need to be conscious of this, and I am working on it to the day. And I think I'm way more grateful for lots of things in my life, which puts me in a better mood. You mentioned Mr. Rogers. I think that's such an amazing experience. Just just to watch him and learn from movies and all the stories. And I think this is exactly where you need to take this example in the moment and just go back, regardless whether it's late, and just still do it because this we all, especially as a man, I think we all guilty of like we're not going to be the first one just to come to each other and say, hey man, I'm grateful for that, right? So I think man's society, for some reason, we don't treat those kind of things it's okay, and it's kind of treated in the wrong way, where it's like, oh, like men don't say this kind of things to each other, or this is not okay, right? So, and I think it's wrong, and it's definitely more nowadays just to look into this and say, I am grateful, this is great. And more grateful, more you become as a good citizen and good human being, and more you bring this like great energy. I think analogy I've learned recently, just you either polluting the world, or you bringing the light in the world. And I think that just with this I can finish it just like, yeah, I'm today I am working on bringing more light than polluting with my anger and some other things which just rise up from not being grateful for little things. And I'm complete.
Yeah. Um, Interesting thing you kind of touched on that, and Casey as well, about the protecting yourself first. So being grateful for yourself first, right? I'd venture that we are always going to be limited in how grateful we can be until we can be grateful for ourselves, right? Just like the love example, right? You can't really love others until you love yourself. So it's like, you know, we're we're kind of going to be disabled in being able to be grateful and express gratitude until we can start to recognize it more. But it's a little duplicitous because we still get to that point where we think ourselves less important, less worthy, less worth taking care of, less love for ourselves, that we do end up putting it onto others. And I think Rara had the point she mentioned earlier, is like we mask that. We put the illusion that, hey, because I'm being so grateful, I'm fine. And we're really skipping ourselves completely, or throwing ourselves under the rug, and just like, you know, building up all these sacrifices and all this stress and tension in ourselves without actually having a release or any kind of like healing. So
So Brogans just mentioned it. You can't. I guess have gratitude or you can't love someone until you love yourself. And I guess it's also a matter of having gratitude. It's the same type of deal. So for me, for the longest time, I just wasn't happy with who I was because bad relationship with my father way back when, where nothing was good enough, and so you just felt that you weren't good enough. So you don't understand what gratefulness is, which is why I ended up doing everything on my own when in my 20s. So in my 30s, when I realized I can't do everything on my own and I need to rely on friends, that's where I had to learn the lesson of what gratefulness is. It was a hard lesson to learn for me, and I'm still learning. But like I said, just to put what I had said into context, like that's
We're
what.
on the same page, brother. We're all learning every day.
Yeah, it's not like I was some, pompous, arrogant, full of money, and you know what I mean. Didn't need people. No, no, I needed people. I just didn't recognize that. You know what I mean? Because early years, you're raised to kind of do things on your own. What are we told as men? Stand on your own 2 feet. Do it yourself. Never ask for directions. Go figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
Never ask for support. Never ask for help. Why? Because you don't need it. You're a man. That's the life.
Exactly.
You're a man,
Exactly.
right? Go be a man. So that's why gratefulness is such a hard lesson to learn in my 30s, kind of deal. But Homer, we're talking about these things and putting ourselves out there, but I haven't even heard really, how are you treating yourself? I gotta ask.
I was gonna get there.
Okay.
So yeah, in past talks, we discussed where kind of Steve and I align on. Typically, we're personality type where we give a lot more than we give to ourselves, and you know, I'd say if we had a different way of teaching kids, all around the world, than we had, these human lessons and ways to be a better human early on, maybe we wouldn't have to go through some of the painful things through life. And like, you gentlemen explained, you had to struggle through these, you're told these things, and you know, there's a certain aspect that we do have to persevere through things to learn the lesson. And I'm as hard headed as anyone, as you know, Casey, to get the lessons to sit. I need to go through some pain and suffering and, understand it before it actually is something I action. Right? It wasn't until we had the talk, about retirement and like how serious it is to just like not think about that and be able to like, oh, I actually like imagine what that is, plan what it is, or else it's never going to happen. Right? So yeah, there's things with me where I'm just distracted, and you know the career's been busy and it's picked up and it's in a good place now, but I use that a lot of the time, a bit of a workaholic in the sense that I let that distract me from other things, um, and I don't stop and have those moments as much about myself to be grateful. As I said, like things like think about drinking water and access to things, the house, and being safe, and like there's things, especially from a pandemic, that I'm very, very aware of, that I'm grateful for, and constantly remind myself of that. When we can't do things or we can't go out and we can't enjoy certain things, it's like that doesn't bug me because I know I'm here with my family, my wife, and my cats, and we have our garden now, and so I'm grateful for those opportunities. So, if anything, through the pandemic, it's helped strengthen some of that and brought it a little more to myself because at the beginning of the pandemic, I was still going through, some health issues around sleep and other things that it's still a process and I'm still figuring some stuff out, but mental health and physical health is still eating, right? Diet. I am doing things to take care of myself now because I want to be grateful and appreciate what I can do. And that while I'm still busy doing things like work, helping others where I can, that I'm, running this podcast and this, audio drama, idea that came along in this a way to express myself creatively, and also a way of kind of giving back to my thoughts on uncomfortable truths. And, you know, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't start to be grateful for I have this skill, I have this knowledge, I have a voice that people keep saying they want to hear, and I did nothing with it for a good number of years of people telling me that. So I had to finally just recognize that, yeah, I'm grateful I have this voice. I'm grateful that I can express it in different ways. That I have the ability to just start uh, spreading some good, because the thing about the internet and the social media, right? How there's that fakeness, negativity around it. The concept of social media being bad. There's nothing wrong with virtually almost any technology, aside from weapons point of it. But the idea that these things are bad and social media is causing these issues is like, no, it just amplifies things that we already have. Biases, trains of thought, the way we act, the way we interpret things, the way misinformation gets passed around to easily. These are just human issues that just get amplified through all of these tools. And the reason, it's so hard for us to be grateful is we get caught up in the wave of this change. and it's all about this evolution, this ingenuity, this new thing, this new technology, this new this, and we're just again, we're very myopic and we look so small and think like, oh, this is too big a change, right? But you know, if look at it from a different lens, it's like there's nothing wrong with anything beyond the way we're used to, right? So yeah, I think because this year of actually starting to make those creative things a priority, which is something again I've sacrificed and put on the side, and I've been trying to quote unquote write a novel for 12 years. Why didn't I do it before now? Because I keep making sacrifices. I keep not, giving myself time to reflect, to be grateful, and to lead into the third point here. So I stay on the mic and give you some stuff, KC, to work with. Um, Holding back or embracing it. Um, yeah, I'm definitely still struggling with this because I did something last night particularly harmful to myself. So the other night, or Thursday night, had a bit of a fight with my wife, and it was from a misunderstanding. And the way I communicated something was received wrong than I intended, and became a thing. And even though I apologized, even though I made up for it and we settled, and it's not an issue, uh, last night I chose to eat some snacks late at night, too close to bed, and basically had a very terrible night of pain. And I'm like, I told myself before I was doing it, I'm like, I don't need to eat this. I'm already full. I don't need this food, but I still ate it. And I woke up this morning and took some time to reflect, even after the poor sleep. And I'm like, I have an addiction to food. I know this. It's been brought up in past talks, and it's something I struggle with and I'm better at. And this does not happen that often. But I took some time to just sit there and like finally ask. And it's like, so it's related to why I was upset of having fought on Thursday, but that was already resolved. So why am I punishing myself? Why did I punish myself and make myself suffer and have bad sleep? And you know, I'm grateful for that opportunity to have had the willingness to have some clarity around that and not just get up, get ready for the mastermind and start moving on my day and just let it pass. I purposely took some time to reflect there and say, you know, I know what was the cause, and I still did it, and I could have stopped myself, but I chose not to. What's in there? Like, why is that happening? So stuff like that is where I'm struggling with, and you know, like UKC, it's a bit of like it happens, even if willfully, I know it's wrong, I'm still doing it, and then I get there and I'm just like, I don't always take this time to like identify it and try to be better for it. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm working through around gratitude. And you know I definitely feel like it's hindering my ability to be more grateful with others, because when I get too caught up in my own stuff and letting the work or whatever else keep me busy, keep me bogged down, uh, I'm not reflecting as much and helping or giving the gratitude to others. Therefore, I'm absolutely not giving to myself. Right. So any gratitude I'm giving out to others is then I'm getting like maybe 10% of that, you know, at times, and that's something I have to change. So I'd say out of everyone on the call, I might be doing the poorest, or that's just my perception. But that's where the struggle is for me. So I don't know if you want to throw anything back at that, KC, or we want to Father D again.
I think Father D has the best way of responding to, sometimes we do things because he's advised me, you know, whereby what you did this morning, and I know you're not a person of faith, shall we say. What you did this morning is like your own version of what I do regularly, which is reconciliation, where you're taking that moment to reflect upon something that you've done and try to reconcile with yourself to a degree to say, okay, look, I recognized I shouldn't have done that. What is it that's driving me to do that? So in the world of folks who have faith and believe in God, believe in a higher power, believe in um, a certain level of accountability to uh, at the end of your days, you will be accountable for your actions, shall we say. Um, in order to be able to come to terms with something that you've done and move forward, goes into, again, that first line again, talking about gratitude being the first of the virtues, one of the virtues there being forgiveness, trying to find a way to forgive yourself. So I end up seeing, my spiritual leader, Father Damien, in order to reconcile myself to God. You were doing the exact same thing this morning, reconciling your situation that you had the night before with yourself. Father Damien, you could jump in here at any point in time. I don't know if I've did I learn the lesson right here?
Yeah, I think it's understanding humanity at its that we are not perfect creatures to begin with, and that there is a something called concupiscence. So we have different appetites that lead us towards choosing things, and because we are disordered by our very nature, we always think. That's why when you take a look at Aristotle or any philosopher that's pushing moral ethics, we never start morally in the center. We're always working from from a disadvantage. We're already leaning towards vice. And what that's why we have to habituate ourselves. Like, what is a virtue? A virtue is a habit, right? So you have to habituate yourself until you get that virtue, until you start choosing it, right? And I think oftentimes we are, as human beings, we get hard on ourselves without understanding that it's very difficult. Like, we're already, it's like almost like trying to think you're like a 5 year old child should clean their room the way you would clean your room, whereas they have to build up those things, and then when
Right.
have the all that stuff, then they're able to do it. So I oftentimes look at, because not to get into sins or whatnot and for confessions, but you know um there's someone that might struggle with something for like 30 years and they expect that overnight they'll be done. If it took you 30 years, it's probably going to take you another 30 or 40 years to unravel that, which
Yeah.
you habituated yourself to. So one, not to be disappointed with yourself, but to move forward. You fall, you get back up. That's where I love Rocky. If you ever watch Rocky, there's a scene in Balboa. There's a scene in the last Rocky, not the Creed series, but the last Rocky, called Balboa. So his son is there, and his son is like, his son finds out that his father was okay, got the okay to go and box again, right? And he goes to the restaurant and he's confronting his father. He's like, "Have you ever thought about me and what this means to me and what all this stuff is?" And Rocky, instead of answering him directly, he just looks at him and goes, when you were born, you can fit in the palm of my hand. And I looked at you and I said, hey, you're going to be good and you're going to grow up, and you did. And then he talks about all this chip on the shoulder that he might have gotten from whatever. But at the point that he made was this. He goes, I'm not going to tell you something that you don't already know. Life is not a bunch of sunshine and rainbows. It's going to hit you hard and knock you down. But it's not about how many times you get knocked down, but how many times you get back up and keep moving forward. And I think with our moral life, we can fall back and we can stay in that situation where we can fall back, get up, continue walking forward. We fall down, we get back up. I mean, imagine if we stopped from failure, where would we be? You you
Oh, totally.
you fell from riding your bike the first time, you never learned how to ride a bike. You fell from walking, you never wanted to walk again. you never walk, right? Like when you're a baby, how many times did
Yep.
you fall when
Yep.
you're trying to make a step, right? The whole point is that, yeah, even in our moral life, we might fall, but to get back up and just walk forward. And and whether it's through faith and reconciliation, or whether it's verbalizing it to someone that you're accountable to be able to know that, yes, I've done this, let me get back up and start again, start fresh. And I think that really that helps us to form ourselves as better. Every choice we make changes our character. So every time you choose to get back up, it changes your character to be stronger, not weaker, but stronger, to resist the temptation, to resist the falling. So yeah, so I commend you. Like you fell yesterday, and you didn't wait like 10 years to say it, but you know what I mean? Like you.
Well, the thing you mentioned about takes 30 years. So, I, through my teens, is where that built up. And, it's been 15 odd years since that happened that I've only been progressing to deal with it and really accept it and move on. So it takes time.
But
Yes, to be able to say it today as quick as I did, that is from also the time that I've taken to get here too. So,
yeah, and see, that's progress, right? So that's another good thing, is that how fast you can quickly convict yourself, and how fast you're able to at least turn around and say sorry. It kind of shows like how you're changing. So the man you were 15 years ago is not the same now, and every choice you make helps you to become a better person, a more virtuous person. And remember, we're talking about human formation. We're talking about being virtuous people, better human beings, right? And so that's one day at a time. Get back up. You fall, get back up, and keep moving forward.
yeah. And since you have the mic, sir,
Oh yeah.
what does it look like if you are holding back from being grateful or not embracing that? Like, because again, we've all had points in life where we don't do that, and maybe there's too many things going on. But like, what happens to you when you kind of put this aside?
Well, I would say when I hold back gratitude, I'm selfish, right? So I only think of myself. I only want to do things for myself. So that's what it looks like, and I can spot it right away. And then, like now, I can spot it right away, and I just I, I actually stop what I'm doing midway. But when I was a mechanic, I did everything for myself. Like literally, like whatever I wanted to do, I did. If I wanted to go on holidays, I did. I didn't have anyone stopping me, and that was not gratitude. That was actually the opposite of it. That's actually selfishness, right? So because I didn't have the gratitude to stop and say, well, yeah, you know what, maybe I should spend time with my grandmother, maybe I should spend time with my mom and my dad. um but I wanted to do things on my own. So that's what it would look like when I'm holding back gratitude. But when I really embrace it, like you'll know, like I'll stop what I'm doing, and I'll do anything, like for anyone, like I'll, because I understand, not to get gratitude, but because I have gratitude for that person, and for me, for what God has done in my life. I have so much gratitude that I'm willing to give my entire life to His service. So yeah, like when you have gratitude for your wife, you'll do anything. When you have gratitude for your children, your parents or your children, or you'll do anything for them. And yeah, and Casey knows, like when it comes to the second question, do I treat myself as well as I do others? Of course I do. I play hard as well as I work hard, and but that comes still from a great sense of gratitude that other people have been helping me, right? Like I talk about Casey helping me with like every time I'm listening to his sets, DJing, learning, getting little tips on how he's doing things, and stuff like that, and little things that will end up, and he doesn't even know, but it will end up helping others, because other people will come to a channel and then end up maybe perhaps asking questions about their life, and maybe it might be life changing to them. So yeah, so everything's connected, and once we see those connections, we begin to have a better gratitude. Like,
Yeah, there's a point I was making earlier about how this it compounds, right? Like we don't recognize it, and the selfishness, entitlement. That's really a sad thing I've seen through this pandemic. Is it's such a great time to be able to get back to reflecting on yourself and improve that part, so that as soon as things are open, businesses are having to state it's like, hey, pad is open, we're only limited quantities, we're a bit rusty at this, some of them haven't been working, like they're like, please have patience. And unfortunately it's probably not going to go that way everywhere, because people have not necessarily been as grateful, during it, or they're so expectant of, okay, now I get to go to the patio again, and they get there and the service is slow, and they get frustrated and mad, and they can't show the gratitude, and that's the thing that I find we struggle with. And again, the social media and stuff like that, it's just an amplification of existing issues. There's nothing new that it's brought out beyond stuff that we have. We just see it more clearly. When you couldn't see anyone across the other side of the world, how did you know what their problems were? Now you know what their problems are.
human. It's
but
human. Human.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Mr. Borges, let's go back to you and have a look at what happens when you're holding back in gratitude, and versus when you are embracing.
Um, Father Damien left so many mic drops. I'm just keep making notes. I think he covered quite a bit. For myself, when I'm not following gratitude, I think a couple of things which show up in my life. Anger, I become really, really angry, which similar to what Father Damien said, like it's whatever you're doing is affecting your life, right? So like I know anger would affect my family, right? So people around me, my close friends. So I think this is number one, right? So that's what happens right away. And B, I think it's self-destructing mechanism, right? So whatever it is, just I call it down spiral, right? So just really, I feel when I'm not grateful, like I'm keep seeking, like this is like this form of fear missing out, like you consistently like, oh, okay, what's wrong, right? So it's almost like this context which consistently replaying in the back of your mind, what's wrong, right? So it's like, and you find what's wrong, right? Well, this traffic is this way, this driver in front of you is an asshole, and just like you come up with all those things and examples which by the end of the day is draining you. You're not helping anyone, you keep polluting, right? So because that's who you are, you feel like everything is not working. So definitely, I think for me, just those two things. If I'm not doing gratitude, if I'm not present to what it is, right? So you, Mr. Homer, you keep talking about glass of water. I think this is incredible example, right? So like I can drink clean water, right?
Yeah.
So and I think this is just realizing little things every step away. Hey, I have a car, I can drive. Hey, I'm in a safe country. Hey, like yeah, I can spend still time with my parents while they're still alive. Yes, I can just go back and just say somebody thank you, and I'm able actually to speak the language and I'm able to verbalize it rather than just like just be quiet about it and make somebody's day. I think just be present to this. It gives me lots of power, and like helps me to grow every day. Similar again to what Father Damien said, like it just like it makes you stronger day by day, right? So, and I think I've done huge portion of my life for not being grateful, and I think maybe being one of those teenagers who were not really happy about life, even though like it was a happy life, even though I was like all my grounds were taken care of, and I had whatever I had, and I was still grateful. I was just safe. But right now, just rewinding all this, or just like working backwards and just like rethinking, okay, why would I was like, saying this is wrong? Like, being mad with my dad, I'm converted the context is just being, like, I'm grateful I had the dad I had, who provided, who had everything. He had food on the table and we had everything. Not 10 chickens, to Father Damien's example, but like we had one, like whatever it is, just all those little analogies I could use. And definitely right now, stay on the track, remembering this. I think that's the context today, right? So just don't miss those little opportunities where, yes, I could be mad with my partner, but like I can go back to her and just, find the same amount of reasons to be grateful for her being in my life, rather than just being miserable and say, oh, this is you doing this and that, and just which converts to like, blame game and not helping none of us. And opposite, just, it's just like, I love Father Damien's example. He's saying like, you just be mad at the kid, 5 year old, that he's not cleaning room to the same extent. And I was like, oh man, this is perfect. Like, because
Yep. Yeah.
I am this guy who's being mad at 5 year old. I'm mad at my teammates were not, maybe I'm expecting the work from my level where they haven't been through what I've been through. They haven't learned what I've learned, right? So, and I think just being grateful that I have people who can help, and transfer this context to, hey, I have people I can rely on, right? And I think this is huge. Like, that's actually change lots of things in life, and you help others to grow rather than just like, be miserable and keep them miserable, right? And prevent them from growing. Just be there and say, hey, like, maybe I can show you what I've done when I was 5 year old, right? So
I,
that's my example.
I think one of the best experiences I ever had, my pastor, when I was a seminarian, my pastor sent me to Jamaica to help the missionaries of the poor. So we were in the ghettos of Kingston and helping the poor and the destitute and stuff like that. And I remember there was I remember the food that they got. It wasn't much. It was like really like chicken feet and rice and like very small amount of stuff, right? Whatever was donated was made and given to them. I remember one morning for breakfast, the brothers brought out a meal, and then I saw a cockroach inside the rice that was in my rice, and I just pulled out the cockroach and continued eating because I knew that wait, like all these guys are eating because there might be nothing tomorrow or nothing in like the next hour. Like this could be the last meal, right? So I should just be grateful for that little thing. And I think oftentimes if you often see it like those who come up from nothing, they're grateful for what they have. Like they're grateful they worked hard, yes, and then they're grateful like I worked for this. And I think that's one of the things I thank my parents for. They never, even though they could have, they never gave us everything we wanted. I did get a lot because I'm the youngest and I'm the only boy, but I didn't get everything I wanted, and some things I had to work for, and I worked since I was 16. So that gave me a greater sense of gratitude when they did give me something. I knew, oh wow, because mostly I'd be working on it. But yeah, gratitude is something, yeah, that yeah.
I love your point. I totally agree. I think I found this traveling across the world, see the happiest people who doesn't have anything, right? So like, I remember those smiles, like of the kids in India crossing the streets, and just like, with all this danger, and I was just saying, wow, and they were the happiest playing in dirt, while North American kids would whine and bitch about, oh, I don't have like my latest iPhone, right? So that was just that was crazy. I remember even like going back and just saying, oh, I'm grateful I can, I can leave and just like experience the world. And being on the call with Canada, where my team was bitching complaints saying, oh, like the competitor just released a new product and just that's going to go this way, and I'm like, that's crazy how we can put ourselves in this. like we're so much to be grateful for.
Yeah, and an example of like again human short-sightedness around this that the some of the old cathedrals that were built that were started and were going to take like hundreds of years. How much effort is that for an engineer to say, okay, I'm starting this cathedral now, it might be finished by the time my great great grandson is alive. Like the vision and like need to be able to like say, I'm going to commit myself and do something is like, you know you it's just immense to put yourself in that mindset and see what that is like to be able to you know want to contribute that, because there's somebody's watching talking about the arts and like how like architecture and classical architecture is like a thing of beauty because of this, the way that they spent the time thinking, in the first year, 300 years later it's finished, and then the way the light comes in, it's the same glass, and it's like just a place of beauty because they like wanted to give that back to others. And you know I'd say there's an aspect of gratitude is trying to build something that keeps moving, keeps lasting, like famous authors in that, right, or famous movies that have left an impact, that made a difference in people's lives because it's trying to give back in some way. And that the selfishness, as you mentioned, Father D, whenever we pull away and we just we don't even want to give that thanks, like we all suffer. um Mr. KC, we got you to round things out here on point number three. So what do things look like for you when you're holding back, and you touched on it a bit, and what are things like when you're bracing?
Well, I am doing my best to embrace it, um, because that's the when you want to figure out who how you want to be remembered, when your time comes, and I want to be remembered as somebody who was a grateful person, ultimately, because again, all these other virtues are sprung from the fact that you're grateful for whatever your situation is and whatever it is that you've managed to accomplish, or whatever you've been given, or whatever gifts it is that you have, that you've shared. um, the best way to express gratitude is to share your gifts. So, am I holding back or embracing it? My goal is to embrace it. I don't know if I'm where I want to be yet. It's a constant work in progress, but I am definitely trying to not only embrace it, but encourage those around me that I need to nurture, people like my daughter and so forth, trying to teach them about the power of gratefulness, and the rewards that come from being that open and honest and transparent and so forth. It all comes from being grateful, because you have nothing to hide at that point in time, right? You're about as vulnerable as you can be when you are grateful, and you're open for the entire world and to see when you are a grateful person. You're just out there, and it's a wonderful place to be. It's a for me, it's a place of freedom. It's just throughout my life I've had so many hang-ups that hold me back from uh, expressing my gratitude properly. That's why I say it's a work in progress. I know that when I do, everything is just right in the world, right? And it's kind of like Brogan says, you can hold on to your anger, or your frustration, or your disappointments, or whatever, or you can be grateful for what it is that you have in the moment. Sure, hey, the glass broke. All right, whatever. I got six others. I'm grateful for that. Life is good. continue and move on. So, um, like I said, there's a certain freedom that comes from expressing gratitude and being grateful. Um, that I aspire to continue to grow to get there, and that's it. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Thanks, man. Okay. And I touched on it, but I'll just give a final point around that. For me, I'd say I'm always holding back to a point, and like you, Casey, I'm working on it, and I definitely recognize that I'm not making the impact that I might have been if I started approaching this creative thing a little sooner in a different way. But I'm definitely learning the lessons and seeing the importance as there's so many negative voices out there that we need the positive ones, and we need the ones who are willing to look at things differently and have us challenge the way we look at things to be better. So I'm grateful to have put my foot out there and to have started you know the avalanche of this and what it's going to do, and be able to start producing these stories and start making this happen. So you know as this is happening and I'm starting to see the doors and the possibilities and all these things start to open up because of it, I'm grateful that I've gotten to a point that I can embrace that instead of be fearful. Because again, you know, where some of this stuff comes from, and why maybe sometimes why we don't choose to be grateful for ourselves and push ourselves, be willing to stand back up. As Father Damien was speaking to, is like, you know, this is a very turbulent time, and there's a lot of polarization. And I'm, a white guy stepping up, straight white guy, putting my hand up and say, "Hey, come listen to me." Yeah, hey, hey, right. At a time where that's, not always the best thing, because of a lot of bad things that happen due to that. So it's like I had to just put that aside and be like, no, I have diverse friends, and I care about people, and I care about looking at the things and the reasons why people that look like me keep making the mistakes and don't want to see past their small worldview. So, that's something I had to move on and let go of. And I'd say, part of the gratitude for yourself is the only way. We talked about growth again, Father Damien, right? It's almost like until you can be grateful, that until you can love yourself, like you can't grow. You're always going to be at a certain point, in a certain size, in a certain range of emotions, if you're not willing to keep reflecting and saying, I'm glad that I was able to do it. I'm glad that I'm able to put this together, that I'm able to be here today, that I'm able to contribute, that I'm able to use my thoughts for something better and not add to the pollution, as Bergantier mentioned, right? You're the polluting, where you're shining light. So, you know, that's the things that I'm focusing on. Where I slip up like last night and I do, hurtful things to myself, I know it's not the norm. I know it's not a habit. It's a rare thing now, and I will get back up and keep moving. So, right. So that's yeah, wrap for today's talk. If we can just go around and get everyone's final thoughts on this topic, and go with you, Father D. Any insights and stuff that you've taken from today's talk, and just super, fortunate that we happen to align. That where we're talking about is where you're taking things. So that's awesome.
Thank you. And as you know, churches reopened and they have masses and stuff like that. But yeah, I like the image of water and stuff like that, like the water, the jug of water, and what you're feeding. What, like if it's filled with hatred, filled with negative, and filled with bad things, that's what you're going to give others. But one of the things that I like to think of is, if we think of ourselves like trees, or plants that grow, you need to feed it. What do you feed it, right? Or and we only grow as well as we're fed. So, and that's the same with like ourselves naturally, if you want to think about it, right? So, um, in our human character or our human formation, what we're fed, if we're, we need to get rid of certain things. So, if my cup is already filled with like bitterness, hatred, all these different things, and not love or gratitude, then that's what I'm gonna end up forming my myself to be. I'm gonna end up growing like that. So I guess the key is just to every now and then look at the cup and see what it's filled of and try to get rid of it. And the more you can empty it, the more you can fill it with gratitude, love, peace, patience, kindness, as many things as you can of virtue. And to leave you with this, so Aristotle's four virtues, of justice, prudence, what is it, fortitude, and temperance. Um, Gratitude falls under justice, which is a constant, perpetual will to render what is owed, right? And that means also to yourself, right? So you should be grateful to yourself for many things that you've done, but also realizing like gratefulness isn't just gratitude is not just one way, right? Meaning like the one person that did something, but if you can recognize and be grateful for what you do, then that's another good thing. That's not selfishness. That's not the same. It's actually being honest. It's actually part of the virtue of justice. It's actually being honest. That's not selfishness. That's not the same.
Thank you, man.
It's actually being honest. It's actually part of the
Casey,
virtue of
give
justice.
your thoughts and insights for today, man.
How do you follow that, man? Like seriously, how do you follow that? Like, yeah, what am I taking away from it? The again, the struggle of getting there in the moment, being able to recognize or remember to express gratitude for things that people have done to help me. That's big for me because sometimes I leave it alone thinking I'm going to get back to it and it never comes. Tomorrow I'll do it tomorrow and tomorrow never comes is the situation that I find myself in sometimes. So it's a matter of being able to do it in the moment. That's me. That's what I'm taking away.
Awesome. Mr. Brigance, final thoughts.
Sorry, sorry, I apologize. I'm just similar to Casey. How you can follow this? I think for me, I'm taking definitely this terminology from Father Damien, like 5-year-old. I think that's just 5-year-old, and that being in the moment, being in the moment, so you could recognize to what Casey is referring, like in the moment, not afterwards. And if it's possible, I'll use the terminology which you, Mr. Homer, brought up as Mr. Rogers. You still could be great. Just come back, and it's okay to even say afterwards something you're grateful for. So those couple of things I'll take away.
Thank you, man. And in another speech from Mr. Rogers, an acceptance speech, you know, such a such an amazing man, and the way he tried to promote these kind of things and virtues. And he, in the acceptance speech, got up there and basically tried to contextualize gratitude and saying, like, you know, think about, the people and the things that got you to where you are right now, right? And you just ask them to take 10 seconds of silence to think about that. So I want to try this with us. If we can just take 10 seconds now to think about all the people and all the things that brought us here, I'll time this.
Lots of microphone drops today.
10 seconds of silence starting now.
Lots of microphone drops today.
Okay. Hopefully that some things came up for you, maybe some thoughts, even old ones that you might not connect. Were there. Um, and yeah, what I take away from this is, the importance of making it a habit. Right? Rara first brought it up, and Father Damien, you've made it clear the virtues, the habit leading away from vice, and I, I think it's true, right? We start off at a disadvantage, but the failure and something that I've really helped try to contextualize myself is essential. And even knowing that society just keeps portraying it as this bad thing, this thing that should be laughed at or be treated poorly. And it's like, if the kid gave up after he fell the first time, no one would walk. Humans would be crawling animals, right? Like, it's just this concept of like looking at failures and even poor. So I, recognize that I am have been grateful for failure as a tool, and nothing, there's no negative connotation in my mind about failure. You know, the only sad thing about failure, I would say, is seeing someone never learn from that failure. Right? And that's what I recognize. I don't want, like, the incident, last night. I don't want that to be a perpetual thing. And I've learned, and I'm better, but I want that to be a point where it happens maybe one time a year, and then no times a year, and keep progressing. So, but if I slip and that happens because I'm human, well, just have to get back up and keep moving forward. So powerful mic drops. Um, so the upcoming talk we have next month is on July 10th. I can get the months mixed up that time. Next month is July. So we'll be back here same time, 10 to 12. And the topic is, are daily rituals just good marketing? And I thought this was an interesting one to lead after being grateful for things, how easy we get caught up in routines and things that may or may not be good or needed beyond capitalism that we live in. But there's one minor thing I forgot to be grateful for. I want to throw it out to you, KC. Because I have food on my table, you help make that possible for all the Kenyans. So thank you, brother.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's a wrap. Thank you for your time, and appreciate having you all here.
Nice, gentlemen.
Thank you. Amazing.
Nice, gentlemen.